Well, good time now to go through the papers. This morning, we're joined by the broadcaster and writer, Edward Addu, who's joining us remotely, and also PR and crisis management here in the studio, Kevin Craig. Lovely to see you both. Very happy Monday bank holiday morning to you both. We're starting off with the Daily Telegraph, and Kevin, this is a story that you're wanting to talk about, and this is Suella Braverman. Now, she is announcing today about police investigating every theft, every crime. This is about police using, in her words, common sense to investigate the kind of crimes that we've heard lots of stories about when, you know, people say, I've had something stolen, I saw it on my doorbell camera, the police aren't investigating.
Yeah, and so the Home Secretary's communications team have been hard at work in preparation for this bank holiday, Jane, because she's got an article inside and a front page splash in the Telegraph talking, to use her words, that telling the police that ignoring shoplifting, stolen cars, bicycles and phones is completely unacceptable. And we're told that the Home Secretary has secured an agreement from all 43 police forces across England and Wales to follow up on all evidence that where a reasonable chance of catching the criminal exists. So whether that's CCTV, doorbell footage, GPS or witnesses. I mean, this is all about a perception that you allude to, that people feel some stuff is not worth reporting anymore, i.e. the low-level stuff. And, you know, it's good to see the Home Secretary talking about this, and no wonder she is, because 52% of Conservative voters who intend to switch next time have lost trust in the party's ability to deliver on crime. So, I mean, I would say there's every single word that she writes today in the Telegraph you would see from a Labour Home Secretary as well. Quite interesting.
I mean, Edward, no more money, no more staff with this pledge. I mean, some will say, well, hang on, what are the police not going to be doing if they're going to have the time to investigate all of these minor offences?
And that's the key here. If there's no incentives available, then how's the job going to be done? I mean, clearly there has to be some idea or some plan to try and get some funding. But it's, again, with everything in life, if there's no budgets available, if you don't have money to pay for something, then you can't buy it, or nothing will ever get done.
Well, indeed. I mean, we're going to be talking to the Home Secretary actually at 7:05, so we'll put some of those points to her after that. The Express is the next front page, Edward. Tory infighting will gift Labour the keys to number 10. Of course, this is after Nadine Dorries' final resignation over the weekend in her really stinging resignation letter.
Yeah, and what she said to Rishi Sunak, and I quote, he has no mandate and his government is adrift. And senior Tories, they've come out and said, look, you know, if this will certainly give Labour the keys to number 10. And Nadine Dorries, I mean, none of her constituents, they've reached out to her. They didn't know where she was. I think she was seen more on her TV show than she was in her local area. I mean, I worked in her patch had a radio show in her patch for over 7 years, and my former colleague Jonathan Vernon Smith, he posted, retweeted an interview that he had with her many years ago. I think this is when she came out of the jungle and questioned one of the tasks that she did, which was connected to eating a particular part of an ostrich, and said, well, put the question to her. And it was interesting, the same question that he put to her as to where have you been, your constituents have tried to connect with you about homes, education, but you were on TV seen by nearly 11 or 12 million people eating a particular part of an ostrich. And it's funny where we're now discussing where she hasn't been seen and she's resigned, and more or less kind of blaming the Prime Minister for her departure. And clearly it's about her not getting the peerage. Many have said that she wasn't a very good culture secretary. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens next for her, but then also for the constituents in her part of town in Mid-Bedfordshire. Clearly they want and they need an MP who can do the job and who can represent them.
I mean, Kevin, you know, in defence of Nadine Dorries, she has said that her constituency office, although she hasn't physically been there, that her constituents have been represented, that there has been people who can help them there in her constituency office.
Yes.
But this is, you know, she's not going quietly, is she?
Well, she's not going quietly, and, you know, absolutely, Jane, that's good, typical good balance from Sky News there. That is what she said in her letter, that she defends that the constituency office is working. But as Eddie says, do any of us think think that this letter, and I would urge Sky listeners and viewers, you have to read that letter. It is the most beautiful piece of political vitriol you'll ever see from a former cabinet minister, to the point of picking out the Prime Minister's clothing and shoes and his fake smile, in her words. But as Eddie says, would this be happening if she'd got her seat in the House of Lords? Of course not. You know, Nadine Dorries is regarded by many across the spectrum as a narcissist, and we would not be talking about this if she was in the House of Lords.
Okay, pretty brutal there. I mean, what do you think? What can the Conservatives do in terms of crisis management? Something you know a great deal about. Yeah. How do you massage this story away? Well,
you can't, and I'm sure Eddie would agree that the detail of it is a damning indictment of 13 years of Conservative Party government. I mean, you know, she does. It's the detail that she basically questions. What is Rishi Sunak for? What is he doing? And where's this government going? And that's what's really damning. And that's a Conservative politician.
Okay, let's move on to another story. The Guardian. Kevin, you wanted to kick off with this one. This is about ultra-processed foods, which we have been talking about quite a lot for a few months, haven't we? There was a book out not long ago that a lot of people were very interested in. And we know that ultra-processed foods, you know, are not good for you, as not as good for you, especially in large numbers, as freshly cooked food or unprocessed foods. But what is this saying more about this tidal wave of harm, in inverted commas, on The Guardian?
Yeah, I mean, it's front page not only of The Guardian today, but across the newspapers, and I think both Eddie and myself have got different reasons for being very well informed about working class communities. And this talks about the fact that, in particular, the poor and the underprivileged, their diets are so bad that there are statistically now undeniable results and outcomes, given that so many people have a diet high in ultra-processed foods. And the question is, goes down the pub, what is ultra-processed food? And it's high in additives, ingredients you wouldn't recognise in your kitchen. And a damning front page, The Guardian and elsewhere, talking about, and I'm glad I'm not there for my diet to be examined, the European Society of Cardiology in Amsterdam, some of the largest studies ever, and they basically say, you know, diets high in ultra-processed food in the UK, it's only us in America that eat so much of this stuff, and you're looking at 39% correlation with strokes, heart disease and cardiac incidents, 24% in the larger study of over 300,000 people. And Henry Dimbleby, a very well-regarded campaigner who resigned as the government's obesity czar, is saying, guys, what are we doing? Because this is why there is a 6.5 billion cost to the NHS every year.
And Kevin, Edward, sorry, I mean, the fact is that, sorry, I was just going to say, the fact is that those on low incomes who appear to be the ones that are consuming the largest amount of processed food, the argument is, of course, that many of those people are consuming these foods because they haven't got the resources or the ability to go out and buy fresh food, and they haven't got the time to prepare fresh food. A lot of people working, for example, working 2 jobs.
But Jane, Kevin, it's not so much about the time, it's about access to good food. And in my local area, the amount of fried chicken shops offering £2 deals, and to a parent who can't afford to buy vegetables or to make a good meal, they would happily give. It happened back in the day at school to some of my friends. They would happily give their children £2 to have a chicken meal, so that at least that they've got something to eat. Now, we've got all these fancy places where they offer alternatives, farmers markets, but to the working class, to someone who's working hard and who can't even afford, by the time they pay for something from a farmer's market, that's possibly half of their wage gone, their hourly wage. So something has to be done in order to try and reach out to people and say, not in a sense to pointing the finger at them and saying, well, you need to start, eating healthy foods, but how can we help you, and where can you go to get those types of food, and also at a reasonable cost? And it's interesting that Kevin noted there that us in the States, when it comes to the statistics, it's high on fat, obviously analysing cholesterol as well. I mean, I spoke to a person on the radio yesterday. We're talking about gut health. Gut health is so essential, and obviously with when COVID first kicked in, that wasn't discussed that it had an effect on gut health, and I was certainly one of those people who was affected, because it's not often discussed. So I think definitely it's time to have a discussion about not just about gut health, but about ways of reaching out to people who can't afford decent food, and to make sure that they have decent food on their plates.
Yeah. Right, we only have a minute left, so we'll skip over a couple of stories, but very briefly, Kevin, the front of the Sun, Prince Andrew back in the fold, an olive branch has been handed to him, apparently.
Yeah, I just saw on this Bank Holiday Monday, Jane, worth noting across a number of front pages, press teams have been at work. You know, there's no doubt here that media professionals for the royal family are briefing. It's Happy Family Bank Holiday Monday, and lots of background off-the-record quotes about Andrew will remain professionally distanced from the royals. You know, he had to pay, over £10 million to the person accusing him of sex crimes, but familiarly they're all together, even if his official member, his role as an official member of the royal family has changed forever. There's briefing this weekend saying, but he's still our uncle and he's still around.
Okay, well, we've got lots more papers to get through, so we will talk to you both again in an hour's time at around 1:45, and we'll get some more of your choices. Edward and Kevin, for now, thank you both very much. Well, still to come on Sky News Breakfast, we're going to be talking to the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, as she calls on so-called low-level offences to be properly investigated.